Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Business Talks. I am your host, Chawanne Burns. In today's episode, we are going to discuss Mayor Brandon Johnson and the city of Chicago housing and migrant crisis. Brandon Johnson, he talks a good game. He has these big, grandiose plans, but he has failed to bring his plans to fruition. Okay. We've been waiting for Brandon Johnson to act on all these great plans and nothing has came to life. So that's what we'll be discussing on today's episode of Business Talk. So you guys stay tuned.
Something like this. Looks a little bit like I can't miss. Hey, this is what you call a bad. What? This is what you call a bad. Looks a little something like this. Looks a little bit like I can't miss. Hey, this is what you call a bad. What? This is what you call a bad.
You guys put it in chat. Let me know where you're viewing from. Let's see who we have in the building. Kennard, the DJ, what is the word? Thank you for tuning in. Noble Young, always great to see you. I love my ad block from Germany. Thank you for tuning in. You guys, like I said, put in the chat. Let me know where you're viewing from. I found this funny video on TikTok. It was a few weeks ago. This was when Eric Adams decided, hey, we're going to give immigrants credit cards. Okay, they plan to spend $53 million cash payments to immigrants, and this was to use for baby food, I guess regular food. I'm not for sure, but it was a credit card, and I guess they was going to give them a certain dollar amount per month. Okay, so cash payments. Anyway, Terrence K. Wilson, I don't know if you guys, I shared some of his videos before, but this is Terrence K. Williams talking about the migrant crisis or these $53 million prepaid credit cards.
Call me Paco. I'm an illegal immigrant, and I speak no English. I speak no English, my friend. Put 50 million on my card. Hey, my name Paco. I speak no English. I come here from my country. I come here to get help. My friend, I identify as an illegal immigrant. Put some money on my card. Hey.
Anyway, I thought you guys could get a laugh because I thought this was hilarious. Anyway, so this was just a funny video. I just wanted to share with you guys that I saw on Twitter. Anyway, so Mayor Brandon Johnson, he just announced that he will be changing some buildings, commercial buildings, I guess once offices down in Chicago, downtown Chicago, to they're converting them to housing. Now, my only question is this is a grand in the sky plan like all these other plans? Because like I said, Mayor Brandon Johnson has great plans, but none of these plans have came to life. Okay. So this is Mayor Brandon Johnson speaking in front of the press, and some of the city leaders announced they're moving forward with the LaSalle Street Reimagine initiative, which was introduced by former Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Okay, so I guess this wasn't his plan, but I guess he's trying to put this plan into action. Now, caveat to this, he is asking for $150 million to change or renovate these buildings for this project?
Here with you all today. I just want to dissolve all rumors. I will not be moving downtown Chicago despite how affordable it is. So I'm going to stay in Austin, and we can debate whether Chicago Avenue is also an historic avenue. But it really is great to be joined by individuals who help make the city of Chicago work. And that's our alders, Robinson, Conway, and Riley. Thank you all for being here today. So if you notice on this side of the stage, you have our Commissioner Boatwright, Constaneda, Deputy Mayor Kenya Merritt, our Budget Director, Annette Guzman. I mentioned to Quentin, we had to invite a couple of guys just to make it balance. But I hope it does reflect, you know, the value and the beauty of the city of Chicago. It's really the people of Chicago and the diversity of our city that makes us the greatest freaking city in the world. And so today, as we gather today to celebrate Chicago's historic and vibrant downtown neighborhood and to announce the 4 new adaptive reuse projects that will formally be proposed for city assistance this spring, I do want to acknowledge too that we have strong partners, particularly within labor, and I'm grateful for President Jeannie Castrop. You'll hear from her later, but thank you, Madam President, for your leadership and what it means to have a workforce that has the ability to not only work in the community, but to live in the community in which they work in. And so these projects, individually, each of these projects is a step towards the mixed-use revitalization of the Central Business District. Collectively, these projects are it's a full-blown march into an inclusive and vibrant future for our downtown. Our Central Business District is a global economic and cultural engine.
I gotta stop. Why do they add the word inclusive? Are you just saying that just because it's a buzzword? You're saying inclusive. What do you mean by that? Just say you're gonna have subsidized housing. These housing is going to be for affordable living. Stop saying inclusive unless you're talking about social economically inclusive. But I feel like he's talking about something else.
Its impact extends to all of our neighborhoods and including the suburbs. So shout out to the few of you who snuck in today from the suburbs. We know you want to live in Chicago. Come on. But like many cities, we are in the process of recovering from the impact of the pandemic, resulting in vacancies, particularly our storefronts and our offices.
The impact of the pandemic okay, that may be true, but let's say Chicago did not handle the impact of the pandemic well because of the looting that happened during the pandemic. Black Lives Matter. And so some of those businesses closed because they couldn't get police support. You know, they didn't want to stay downtown because, hey, if you're just going to allow people to come in and destroy my business, why stay downtown? And that downtown is high as hell. So I'm just waiting to see, okay, what is going to be, what would be the rent? Would it really be affordable? Will this be subsidized housing?
And additionally, evolving conditions in workplaces and retail are changing. It's changing what it means to be a shopper and a worker. We have to respond to these changes. As a city, we have to do it in a creative and collaborative way. Our adaptive reuse projects preserve the downtown's history while taking the opportunity to reshape and grow an inclusive and stronger downtown. The 4 projects that we are announcing today represent more than $528 million total in investments. Together, they will create more than 1,000 new housing units and 300 affordable units, within the underutilized office buildings. In addition to affordable housing, we look forward to developing a new hotel, activating empty retail spaces, and supporting an improved public plaza. I'm proud to advance these projects under my administration. And of course, we have to continue to make sure that the Community Development Commission and the Landmarks Commission this spring to highlight and lift up their work to realize the potential and promise of these projects. And DPD Commissioner Boatwright and DOH Commissioner Castaneda will go into greater detail about the projects shortly. But I'll tell you this, these 4 projects demonstrate our shared commitment to revitalizing downtown and creating affordable housing in every single neighborhood. I will also tell you that there may be more adaptive reuse proposals to come, because we're still working to make sure that opportunities for the people of Chicago are full. So stay tuned. You'll likely have heard me say this before, that Chicago truly is the greatest city in the world. I say it because it's true. In what other city do you hear the words downtown and affordability?
Shut up. I mean, okay, yeah, we get riled up. I'm not gonna knock this plan because they do this if you want to tackle the housing crisis, you literally have to do this. You have to bring developers in, but if your developers are saying, oh, we're going to make the rent sky high, no, you get the developers in and you give them a tax incentive and say, hey, 30% of your housing needs to be affordable housing, needs to be allocated for affordable housing. So I'm not going to knock this plan. I think it's a great plan, but can Brandon Johnson pull it off? Everyone thinks the way I'm thinking. Brandon Johnson doesn't know how to pull off plans. I'm sorry. This might be your mayor, but he doesn't know how to pull off plans. Case in point, they just had and this is Chicago Times, Chicago Sun Times. A viewer or a reader responded to, I guess, one of Brandon Johnson's article that they wrote, and it says, to run Chicago, I got to put my reading glasses on. I got to put my reading glasses on, you guys. To run Chicago better, Mayor Brandon Johnson needs to hire better. I said that. I've been saying this for the longest. Brandon Johnson, he has these great plans. And like I said, Brandon Johnson doesn't need to know development. He doesn't need to know how to, or anything about economic development. He needs to know a little bit about it. But he doesn't need to be the expert. He just needs to know how to hire the expert and how to get your city people, or the people that you hire, they need to be great because they're a reflection of you. But for some reason, he doesn't know how to hire people. He hire people like himself. That's and I feel Brandon Johnson is one of those, oh, it's okay. We're not gonna, it's no sweat about it. We don't put pressure on people. I feel like that's how he is. Not holding people to standards. And it says your editorial regarding Brandon Johnson's misses in running the city government made some good points. He could and should be doing a better job. There is no reason to believe that the mayor does not want to live up to his promises and stated goals. There's no reason to believe that Johnson is not making good faith efforts to address matters such as the migrant crisis and homelessness. His true misstep seems to be the inability to competently staff the many city offices that help run Chicago. Yes, Johnson is ultimately responsible for the failure of his plans to come into fruition. Yet it appears that his biggest stumbles are due to blunders committed by his selector underlings. Okay, this is just from a a, a reader. It says more than a few people have been elected as Chicago's mayor who at first glance appeared to be ill prepared to do the job. The mayors who ultimately got some good results were those who recognized their limitations and surrounding themselves with experience and proven individuals. To effectively do his job, Johnson has to get better at choosing those subordinates who will adaptly execute his plan and projects. Always associate yourself with people who are better than you, as Warren Buffett put it. Brandon Johnson, that's not his MO. He doesn't associate himself with people that does better than him. He hires people that looks like him and thinks like him. That never works. You want somebody to fit in, right? You don't want somebody just causing a ruckus. But they don't have to look like you. They don't have to think like you. But that's Mayor Brandon Johnson's problem. That's his problem. And it's going to cause his tenure of mayorship to fail. He's going to be a one-time mayor because people are upset with Brandon Johnson, the way he's handled the homelessness crisis, the way he's handled the migrant crisis, the ways he's handling the crime crisis. Uh, Speaking of crime, Brandon Johnson decided that he's going to struck down the gun, the shot spotter contract. He said it hasn't proved it hasn't had a proven track record. And then, of course, you have your city aldermans mad as hell, all but one, Jeanette Taylor. Jeanette Taylor, she's a progressive. She believes in like defunding the police because she feels like the police are a threat to her community. Don't know why you feel like that, but I guess so. I can't tell her. I wish I could ask Jeanette Taylor. Maybe I'll invite her to the show. Have you ever been a victim of a crime and by the hands of police? I'm saying this because my brother, and you guys know this, my brother, he was killed by the police officer. He was off duty and he killed him in front of my mom. So, and I don't believe in defunding the police. So I would like to ask Jeanette Taylor, have you ever been a victim of a crime by the hands of the police? Anyway, this story says key Chicago City Council panel slaps Johnson for canceling shot spotter contract. This shot spotter is a technology where before they even call the police, they could pinpoint where the shooting took place or where the shots been fired. That's how good the technology is. So, but he's planning to get rid of the contract. He said it doesn't do any good. It doesn't do any good. In the city of Chicago, and over the weekend, they had 11 people that were victims of gun violence. Just off one day, 11 people. A key Chicago City Council panel unanimously lashed out at Mayor Brandon Johnson on Monday, advancing an order that accuses him of having usurped the will of the city council and their ability to represent constituents by canceling the city's contract with the controversial gunshot detection system. The measure, now set for a final vote by the full city council on April the 17th, will require the Johnson administration to provide older people with a host of data generated by the shot spotter before the city contract with sound thinking expires on November the 22nd. It says much of the data is already collected by the Chicago Police Department and is publicly available via online database. The measure also calls for the city council vote before the shot spotter system is removed from any city ward, although it is not clear that will be feasible. Since the Chicago Police Department divides the city into police districts, some of which comprise several wards, authored by Alderman David Moore, the original measures called for the city council to reverse the Johnson's decision to cancel the city contract with ShotSpotter. That language was stricken from the revised measures that advanced Monday, which has 16 co-sponsors. And it says the measure needs 26 votes to pass and will be subject to a mayoral veto. In addition, two city council supporters of Johnson could block the vote on Wednesday. Okay, so original version of the order, which does not have the same force as the ordinance, accused Johnson of committing a serious overreach in his role regarding the shot spotter. And I totally agree. You're in one zone. You live in one zone. You're trying to get money for your city development, your pie in the sky dream that you never put into fruition. Matter of fact, you probably mad because the alderman does not support you going for a bond proposal for $1.25 million because they don't see your plans. They said your plans are not clear, but you want to put $1.25 billion on the city for these housing or economic development plans. And you have failed to put anything in place. You can't even build a temporary tent. Remember the temporary tent for the migrants. The migrants' temporary tent that they had, remember, they had a temporary tent and they leased this ground and the ground ended up being contaminated, or this land ended up being contaminated. So they never could build on the tent on this existing land. And they was paying $96,000 a month for this land. I don't know whether or not if they got out the contract, probably so, but don't you think and I could remember, I used to be since my engineering background, when I started contracting myself out, I used to have to go on commercial properties. And if a commercial property wanted a loan or wanted to do whatever, some upgrades, they used to have to get, it's called an ESA report. And it's environmental report. You have to, if it's an existing commercial building, you have to ask them series of questions. You have to evaluate the property. And sometimes you even have to take samples of the land. This is why I say, going back to that article where that reader was saying, Mayor Brandon Johnson, he doesn't need to know that. But why don't you have the people in place to know those things? To me, it doesn't make sense. You're putting the cart before the horse, and it really doesn't make sense. You guys let me know if I'm going in the wrong direction. But Brandon Johnson, like I said, he doesn't know how to put plans in place. He had these great plans and he doesn't know how to see nothing through. And it's almost a year that he's been the mayor of Chicago. Name me one accomplishment that Brandon Johnson has done in regards to the migrant crisis, in regards to the housing crisis. Winter has passed. What have you done? Not a damn thing. And then you want to take away now, and Chicago has a problem with violence. Now you want to take away their technology because you feel as if maybe, and I'm just assuming, maybe you go on tit for tat with the aldermen because they don't agree with your plan. They don't agree with putting the city of Chicago in a strain for on the hook for $1.25 billion when you haven't seen anything through. I would be afraid too. How can I loan you or make the city be on the hook for $1.25 billion, and you haven't did not a damn thing. It's really unreal to me. So this is a problem. The city of Chicago, they're gonna, I guess they're gonna vote on it. I doubt if it will pass. Um, s- I know it will pass because they do have the votes, but I doubt if his veto. I'm pretty sure they're gonna overturn his veto. Okay, but he wants to get rid of it. He wants to get rid of it. I'm trying to see if I could see Jeanette Taylor's. She had a comment in here. Okay, yeah. Alderman Jeanette Taylor said Chicagoans' unwillingness to call 911 was a much more important issue for the city council. That was the more important issue for the city council to study. So you want to study and you want to throw away money to study the people on why black folks don't call the 911. Well, you black, you don't need to study that. Why we don't call 911? Everybody black in the chat. Why you don't call 911? If you live in the hood, why don't you call 911? Why you need to study that? Why do you need to study? Is a distrust with the police, number one, and number two, people say mind your own business. The code is snitches get stitches, which that code is dead. They need to get rid of it. And she says throwing money at the police and ShotSpotter has not made us safe, said Taylor, who is listed as a co-sponsor of the measure. We've been doing that for decades. Well, technology doesn't work by itself. Technology is there for you to use. But I have this technology, but in turn, I'm defunding the police, which is less police force. Okay, so I see where they're shooting at, but we don't got the manpower to go out there. Come on now. You got to help you. Technology, it only goes so far. You got to put the work in to make sure that, okay, we're going to use this technology correctly. Hey, there's a shooting that's happening in this area, blah, blah, blah. Let's get some police drive around in this area to see if we could spot any victims, any blah, any assailants. So disagree with Jeanette Taylor's statement. And it says by the contract's final day, Chicago taxpayers will have paid more than $53 million since 2018 for the system that Johnson said February 21st never provided a return on city investments or the results that is promised. I don't know if this is true or not. I would like to see, okay, they said they have a bunch of data. If you're saying this is on the spot technology and it does provide data where shooting is happening and it's actually taking place and is actually accurate, but the police do not show up, the technology is doing its job. The police force is not doing its job. And we know Chicago police officers probably they do have a low morale. Come on now. They're probably facing the same problems that they're facing in New York because people do not respect police officers, which they once did. It's a thankless job. They're underpaid and it's dangerous, especially in places like Chicago. And then you have the migrant crisis where you house immigrants at the police station where they shouldn't be. So now they got to be like what is it? Babysitters for immigrants, illegal immigrants taking up spot, and you can't even run into the police station and get help because you got immigrants laying on the damn floor. I'm pretty sure I think they got rid of that problem, but that was their problem. They suffered that problem for 5 or 6 months. Actually, it was in Lori Lightfoot's term too. They've been suffering that problem a long time. Anyway, so immigration is another thing. So you got crime, housing that you haven't did anything. And this, I'm specifically talking about Brandon Johnson. And then you also have immigration. Let me get to some of your chats since I'm running off at the mouth. Okay. Kennard, it says, any of that housing going to be set aside for the homeless? I don't think so. I don't think it's homeless that they're looking at. They're looking at maybe, and let me retract that statement, because if it's subsidized housing, even subsidized housing, you have to be working. And it's based off your income, but you can't have zero income. And that's how they do it here. They call it Mishta housing, but it's subsidized, and it's based off your income, but you do have to have a minimum amount of income for you to get housing. So you can't be po, but you can't be rich. You got to be just po. You can't be po, but you can't be rich, or you can't be medium income. That's you can't be the average. Like, so if you're a one family household, maybe you got to make $35,000 a year. Nothing more than $42,000 a year. Really crazy stuff. I don't know. The guidelines is probably different in Chicago because it's more expensive to live. So we have Samuel Matthews saying Brandon Johnson was open about how radical he is when he ran. Yeah, he's a very radical person, and he's progressive. A video that I've seen of Brandon Johnson, he used to laugh about not giving his kids tests because he was a administrator or a teacher at once. So he used to laugh, oh, I don't give my kids tests. So how can you base their performance? How can you measure their performance if you don't give your children's tests? Sounds ludicrous. I heard nothing about the homelessness. No, I haven't. John from Dallas. Hey, thank you for tuning in. Voice of Risen. Sorry, Chawanne, that's deep. Black mayors are being puppeteered to destroy the country. I kind of agree with you, but I don't know if they're being puppeteered. I think they're just so deep in like brainwash and speaking on inclusivity and all this stuff. And we gotta, I don't know. They use all these damn buzzwords. It's almost like, are you a man for real? Because most men that I know, they like get the damn job done. If they hire you, can you do the job? The very straightforward, not like kumbaya, we're gonna hire, representation matters. Eric Adams. Okay, it's nothing wrong looking out for your people, but you don't have to. Representation matters. There's other races that could do the job. And you just looking at, hey, this person is a Latino, let me hire them. Can they do the job though? And then are you disqualifying all the white men or all men, period? Because literally a lot of these Mayor Eric Adams, he got a lot of women under him. Brandon Johnson, you seen it, he got a lot of women. Men can't do the job. And he laughed about it. Oh, we had to make it balanced to invite men. Let me just show you the picture. I think they spanned out on some of this. You have 3 men up here and everybody else is women. I mean, I'm not knocking women. Don't take it that way. But like I said, you have these black mayors up here, black men, and they're like representation matters, and they're like real sensitive. It's like, Okay, just get the damn job done. Hire people that could do the job, not because they're Latino, not because they're a black woman, none of those things. Look at the application. Don't even look at the name. Look at the application, where they go to school, what are their experiences, what are their accomplishments. Then measure it off of that. Matter of fact, what they should do is not even have your name on the application, and just put numbers on the application, and make your name not known, and based off the experience, and where you went to school, and not even where you went to school, just based off your experience of where you worked at. And now if they're a graduate, if you're trying to hire a graduate, then okay, of course you got to look at their GPA. But how many years of experience do you have? Do you need a lot of experience for this particular position? That's literally how they should do it. Instead of seeking out women, and they got to be a certain race. No, that to me, that's just so stupid. And this is why Brandon Johnson, he's gonna fail. And another thing, so we were discussing Brandon Johnson. He's handling the homelessness crisis badly. He's handling the housing crisis horribly, and the migrant crisis. The migrant crisis is going horribly wrong. And there was a individual, a Chicago resident, that was furious at Brandon Johnson over a migrant crisis. And this is an immigrant. She said she came over to America legally, and the things that she had to do to gain citizenship. And she's complaining about illegal immigrants. Listen to her.
Causing traffic, yet no police reinforcement to help. They're selling food without permit, causing traffic, yet no police reinforcement to help us. Guys are standing on the side of the building, doing God knows what, riding their bicycles around the neighborhood, and looking to break into our houses, garages, and cars. Smoking weed and drink in the park in broad daylight. You guys threw us to the wolves, and now we have to deal with the trouble you brought to our neighborhood. Unlike the illegals, as a legal immigrant myself, I know what I had to do to enter your country. I was required to do a background check, vaccinations, pay an expensive fee, bring a work letter from my previous job. Shall I go on? Some might be good, but the others are here to cause trouble. For example, my neighbors had their car broken into, packages stolen from their front yards, and someone pee on my property. Yes. I'm requesting Alderman Vasquez, Mayor Johnson, and those who made this decision to walk our neighborhood and see what's happening there. You want to look good by helping them, yet we taxpayers are left behind. We are now being put in harm's way because of the crimes they commit in our neighborhood. Your no-consequence policy tells them it's okay to commit these damn crimes. Now, what about the citizen and the legal immigrants who came before them? We're still waiting years for our own families to enter this country legally. It is frustrating to see our voice censored and feeling hopeless. Finally, we know the illegals are returning in the middle of the night, parking our residential permit area, acting if the shelter is a bed and breakfast. They need to leave now. We want our park back, and we demand that. It's not fair. You guys putting us in jeopardy. Kids cannot go outside. 2 weeks ago, someone was peeing in my yard. A lady grabbed a branch off a tree and took my package from Amazon. They are break to cars. 6:53 a.m. I have videos to prove. Break into cars, and we cannot do nothing about it. Cops come, they see, and they go away. Selling food all the time.
And she's absolutely right. They can't do nothing about it, and the cops can't do nothing about it because they're a sanctuary city. Sanctuary city protects illegal immigrants. It protects illegal immigrants from ISIS or ICE being called in to collect them and deporting them. So, and then now you have, I believe Chicago is one of the cities you guys put in the chat. I believe they already passed their law where if the crime is less than $900, they have a no bond, um, I guess, no bond proposal, whatever. They let them out. They don't even arrest them. They don't even arrest them. So Brandon Johnson, he's handling the migrant or illegal immigration crisis horribly. So this is a sad for Chicago. Very very sad for Chicago. There was someone in the chat, Kim B, she says, "Huh, what are you even saying? I'm from Atlanta, and the BLM protest was one that was fomented by protesters that seemed to be covering their faces on bikes and knew exactly how to start trouble." I'm not for sure what we're saying here, but we know the BLM protesters, and when you could say Antifa, if you want to call them Antifa, but both of those groups, they tore up some shit and they were on video camera tearing up shit, tearing up properties that wasn't theirs. And from to me it's sad because you have those particular people went around breaking into stores, looting and tearing up, defacing properties, bragging about it. And who bears the brunt of that? Those mom and pop stores will probably never come back to life. Um, these bigger retail stores, why stay in places like Chicago or in places like New York? Great places to shop at, but why stay there if you are not the city police is not will not prosecute these people, or we don't have any protection. So why stay there? Um Luella Mitchell says black mayors and DAs and lawyers will not be written well BOF in history. They are helping both black men and black women. Corey Joseph says, "What up, though?" Corey from Detroit. He is done. He will probably finish his term, but next election, he's out of here. He can't recover from this. No, he can't. And the Democrat National Convention is going to be there, so they probably going to be protesting. A lot of black folks is protesting. Brandon Johnson is already mad because one of his things did not pass. His city tax or real estate tax didn't pass, and he blamed on Trump supporters. Well, these are your people that probably elected you in, but Brandon, your track record is proven. You don't know how to put things in place. You don't know how to act on things. You don't know how to see through things through. You talk a good game. You're almost like a hustler. You talk a good game. You talk a lot of crap. But when we say, okay, show us proof, you don't know how to do that. Same with Tiffany Hilliard. Maybe something in the water. Maybe they both, know each other. But they talk a good game saying they do all this stuff. But when they ask to show proof, show us proof of what you did. You failed to do that. Now, one thing I could say about Tiffany Hilliard, she does show you proof because she has a bunch of videos. She has a bunch of videos. She just don't get board approval. So she just do whatever. She just don't get board approval. So that's Tiffany Hilliard. So she knows how to see stuff through. If she got it in mind, she's gonna, get it done. But Brandon Johnson, he could have been a great mayor if he stopped trying to hire people because you're trying to say representation matters. Now he just hired another chief of staff, not to or appoint another chief of staff because his other chief of staff retired. So he appointed Mayor Johnson appoints city's first Latina chief of staff. Nothing is wrong with that, you guys. I don't think there's nothing is wrong with that. But did he appoint her because she could do the job, or did he appoint her because, oh, we want to say representation matters? You guys put in the chat. Do you think Brandon Johnson appointed her because he was thinking, oh, representation matters, or she could actually do the job? And I think is the first. Brandon Johnson has appointed the first city Latina chief of staff, uh, Dr. Christina, whatever. I don't know how to pronounce that name, Zaya, who was appointed to the position on Tuesday, is a Chicago native who served the mayor's first deputy chief of staff since May of 2023. So she served since 2023, and so she got a promotion. What was she doing prior to that? We don't know, but she's a doctor. So maybe she'll be good. I'm not for sure. Christina's unparalleled dedication to our city, her depth of knowledge on critical issues affecting our neighborhoods like housing, community safety, education, and her proven track record of leadership make her the ideal person to serve as my next chief of staff. Johnson said in the news release on Tuesday, I am confident that together we will continue to make strides toward a better, stronger, safer Chicago. Okay. Oh, she served in Illinois State Senate before she resigned from the chamber to serve as the first deputy chief of staff. Okay, so maybe she does have some experience. I'm deeply honored to serve the chief of staff of Mayor Brandon Johnson in City of Chicago. This role presents a unique opportunity to advance our collective vision for our city to deliver equity and opportunity for all, and I am committed to leveraging every resource and partnership to make this vision a reality. You got your hands in place. You got, I mean, your hands full dealing with Brandon Johnson because he looks like he's in La La Land. Brandon Johnson, like I said, Brandon Johnson seems like a guy to me, like, oh, whatever, and he has all these great ideas, but he doesn't put nothing in place. He doesn't know how to act on these great ideas. And like I said, you don't need to be the expert of economic development. You don't need to be a developer. You don't need to be an expert of city management. You need to know something about something or what the job entails, but you need to put the people in place that knows what they're doing. And it seems to me that Brandon Johnson, like the article said, Brandon Johnson doesn't know how to do that. So that to me is a failed leader. He doesn't know how to lead. You guys put it in the chat. Let me know what you think. The Warrior says the only thing worse than an incompetent mayor is a mayor or leader who is an empty suit. Nobody wins. Luella said citizens did not get a vote. That is wrong. Blacks have no rights in some of America's biggest city. Blacks in the end are going to be the biggest losers in the beginning and the end. They always are. I think reason why we end up being losers is because we don't put our agenda first. We tried to say, oh, we all in a bucket, just like the feminist movement. We let other people persuade us that something matters when it doesn't matter. We took on somebody else's cause when it really does not help our families, our community. That's why we end up losing. Oh, we all migrants should, they deserve a chance. No, they don't. And they don't. If they're coming over here illegal, they don't deserve a chance. And we got to stop being the bleeding heart for everything. Put your agenda first. And there's nothing wrong with that because everybody else does. If you put your agenda first, then we end up winning. Then your vote does matter. And it will matter. And stop voting for reparations. Stop voting on, oh, they're going to give me money or some subsidized housing. Who cares? We voting on a handout. We need to stop doing that. Stop voting on handouts. Anyway, the warrior says he pointed her, and isn't it amazing that she is the same ethnicity as his problem? Wouldn't that be funny? She's Latina, but is she from Venezuela? Coleman said BS appointment. She's about as doctor as Jill Biden. Jill Biden got her doctor degree from I think is she honorary doctor? I'm not for sure. I think she teaches somewhere though. She has tenure at some university. Kennard the DJ, I think we're too busy trying to work with every other ethnicity other than our own. We're too jealous, hearted, and envious towards our own, and nothing gets accomplished as a whole for our people. Exactly. We so busy having a bleeding heart for somebody else instead of having a bleeding heart for our own people. And then we get mad at our own people because they're accomplishing stuff. Instead of putting our money together and pooling it together, well, we could say something about that because we lack trust within our own community. But instead of like Black churches, for instance, go in the hood. They got a whole bunch of small little Black churches because everybody want to be a preacher. And same religion. It could be Church of God in Christ on every corner, then a liquor store on every corner in that case. But the Church of God in Christ, you have Baptists on every other corner. You have Church of God in Christ. You have Methodists, AME churches, all these churches in the Black community, and they little small churches. How come y'all can't agree that y'all serve the same God? You don't see a Catholic church on every single corner. You don't see that. You don't see a Catholic church on every single corner. Or Episcopal is Episcopal. Some of them are African Episcopal, but you don't see those other white churches on every other corner. No, they usually like few miles apart from each other, if that. And they have a nice congregation and they pool their money together. But for some reason, Black folks, we can't come together on things. Only thing we come together is we gambling or it's a cookout, and that might end up in a fight. Some of us. I could say that I remember like my one side of my family. They don't do a lot of fighting in that family, and then my ex, his family, both the sides of their family, they didn't do a lot of, fighting each other. But I know a lot of other Black families, they fighting at funerals. The sisters, it's like, y'all like literally fighting at a funeral. It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway. The worry said, facts. We also let others hijack our civil rights movement that has nothing to do with the civil rights from slavery, i.e. white women and LGBTQ. That's what I said. The feminist movement. Feminist movement had nothing to do with Black folks, and Black women were like, oh yeah, we need equal rights. No, you need to get your man to get a job. That don't got nothing to do with you. And a lot of things that happened because of feminist movement and the welfare system took black families, they tore black families apart. And we still can't come together. We still arguing about, oh, you need to be submissive, or you need to, I don't know, be a virgin. I don't know, whatever the red pill arguments are. You need to be traditional, but you're not a traditional man. It's just really ridiculous. Anyway, so many churches and nobody churching. So many churches and nobody churching. Too many of our people are self-centered and greedy. Yep. Self-centered and greedy. And I think that's our problem. Anyway, I think that's what I had to share with you guys. I think it's just Mayor Brandon Johnson failed plans, or not even failed plans. He failed to enact or act on his plans. So in turn, he has a failed leadership. Okay. You guys, thank you for tuning in once again. I really appreciate every single last one of you. I'm going to be um, joining. We'll be doing something tomorrow at the same time, 1:30. I'm not for sure what I'll be talking about, but you guys stay tuned. Okay. I am sending all my good to you. I will talk to you tomorrow.